And welcome to the Strike Show. My name's Sean Hartnett. I'll be your host today, and joining me as ever is sound conductor Michael Chubb.
Hello to everyone listening. You just keep switching up the names, don't you?
Yeah, why
last
not?
week was Sound Demon, now it's Sound Conductor, Sound Wizard.
Well, don't let the audience in on it. Now they'll be expecting me to. Every week I'll have to come up with a different
That's
word.
what I want. So keep
We do extra work.
Yeah, keep it up.
Okay, diving straight into the headlines this week. Why fuck about? We have a really interesting story coming from America. To break it down, essentially there is a Saudi Arabian prince, of course, who's fucking about, and as ever, with the most pious and judgmental of people, he is often the most hypocritical, and he has been found this week engaging in all sorts of hijinks and revelry. Wait till I read you this fucking description of what this rapscallion has been getting up to. It says, Prince... Oh, here we fucking go with this name. Prince Majid bin Abdullah bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. How many fucking bins does he have? 29. No, sorry, he's 29 years old. It's not how many bins. He's 29, made unwanted sexual advances at 3 female workers, court documents reveal. He held parties between the 21st of September and 22nd of September where cocaine was used, alcohol was consumed, and escorts were brought in, they claim. Tomorrow I will have a party with you and you will do everything I want or I will kill you, the prince is accused of saying to a worker, a married mum. The workers say that they tried to leave the mansion but were locked in by Al Saud's aides. Prince Majid was arrested last month and accused of trying to force oral copulation on an adult after neighbours spotted crying and bleeding women. So was he giving oral or receiving it? I guess we'll find out. Court documents seen disclose how he's being accused of being drunk and high at his $37 million ranch in Beverly Hills and making repeatedly unwanted sexual advances. The documents were filed by lawyers acting for 3 female employees of Al Saud. They include a claim that the royal attempted to urinate on the trio whilst screaming, "I want to pee-pee," like a fucking child. He also threatened to kill one of the women if she refused to party with him and jumped on top of another and began rubbing himself against her in a sexual and aggressive manner. When asked to stop, Al Saud allegedly then yelled, "I am a prince and I can do what I want. You are nobody." I mean, he's almost like fucking Uday Hussein. Do you ever see that film? What was it called? The Devil's Double. It was about Uday Hussein's, obviously, Saddam Hussein's son, but they were really, all that lot were really paranoid about being assassinated at any time, so they used to find people who looked kind of like them, and then in the ways they didn't look like them, make them undergo plastic surgery so that they could appear at like public events and stuff. So there was this one guy who was like Uday's childhood friend, and he was brought and he kind of looked like him, so they made him look even more like him, and he essentially had to be this Uday Hussein's double. And Uday Hussein is one of the most crazy people ever to have walked the earth. He is a purebred psychopath. I mean, the shit that he did, I mean, we don't even have time to get into it, but the film itself is kind of shit. It's got that, what was his name, Dominic Cooper or whatever, kind of very hit and miss actor depending on what project he's involved in, but the story nonetheless is interesting. If you don't watch the film, at least read Uday Hussein's Wikipedia article. It is fucking fascinating. Just everything, like rapes. He raped a woman on her wedding day to like her husband, and then she like committed suicide by jumping off a balcony that day in front of the wedding party. He used to drive around in his car and like pick up schoolgirls that were like leaving school and stuff and just like bring them back, and then he would like just mercilessly savage them, and then they would obviously get honor killed by their fucking families because they were worthless. Just it was obscene type stuff. But yeah, that's what that kind of Middle East mentality breeds. When you give these people so much money in the form of oil, and they come from a kind of monarchy-esque mentality where they think that they can just, subdue their people like this, and they view themselves as almost demigods amongst plebs who have no power against them. What did you expect? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So Yeah, all three women claim to have seen the royal have his penis stroked by a male aide and then say that they were forced to stay in the room and watch as the encounter unfolded. Homosexuality is illegal in Saudi Arabia and punished by flogging or even execution. Another says that she was made to watch whilst a different male aide bent over and broke wind in Al Saud's face, apparently at his request. Jesus fucking Christ. It is always the most pious, preachy bullshit people. I mean, I'll never forget that story of, what was his name? Ted Haggard, I think was his name. But he's a guy, like, he's one of those fundamentalist Christian preachers over in America, and he was the epitome of the guy who was like anti-gay. He led one of those mega churches in America where the fucking fundamentalist Christians, run up and down the aisles like in Borat, and they dance around and they speak in tongues where they're not really speaking anything, and they pretend to be cursed by demons, and they go up and they flail around, and they get, you've all seen the videos of them being like pushed back by those preachers, and then people like Photoshop fireballs and like Tekken music and stuff like that to show them being like thrown halfway across the room. Those types of people. Ted Haggard was like the leader of the biggest one of those in America, to the point where he was on a weekly conference call with George W. Bush himself. Like, that's how tapped into the power system he was. And then one day, and it's actually really good because Richard Dawkins did a documentary like the year before the shit hit the fan about like, religious fundamentalism and stuff. And he actually met up with Ted Haggard and they talked, and they, obviously didn't see eye to eye, but it was a fascinating insight nonetheless. And then the next year, this whole story hits the fan, and it comes out that he's been seeing like male rent boys in motels, and he's like snorting crystal meth off their bare chests and sucking their cocks and stuff. And it was just the most like bizarrely like the antithesis of what he was presenting to his church, this happy family man type thing. And so he admitted it, and he said like, oh, he's cursed by demons and this whole thing. So he lost his gig. They took the church away from him. He was sort of cast out. He was doing like really kind of shaky, like rent-a-job type place. Like, he could barely get employment anywhere. Like, everyone knew who he was, and he was doing like, I think, calling from like people's houses, like salesman door to door and stuff, which was a fair step down from what he was doing. Like, he was a fucking millionaire. But again, it's always these guys that preach. It must be the lifestyle, like, forbidden fruit is the sweetest, when you constantly are declaring to everyone that this is wrong, you shouldn't do this. It makes you obviously obsess on the concept all day long. Like, the majority of us don't think about homosexuality that much. We know it as a concept. We probably maybe have a gay friend or two, but more or less we just don't think about it. We just carry on with our lives. And yet, if you think about it all the fucking time, what else are you gonna do but naturally get curious about it, naturally want to sort of maybe like test it out, or see what the fuss is, or why these people want to do it. So it was kind of inevitable that these people always are found out to be just fucking hypocrites of the highest caliber. So this is where the story kind of is a bit disappointing. The revelations about Prince Maid, they keep calling him like Al Saud or Prince Maid, fucking pick a name and stick to it. The revelations about Prince Maid come a day after it was revealed that the Los Angeles district attorney has decided to drop felony charges against the 29-year-old due to lack of evidence. I'm not sure how you'd have lack of evidence if neighbors are seeing bloody people like streaming from his house, if there's copious amounts of witnesses, if there's like, injuries on them, if more or less benefit of the doubt would suggest that Saudi princes aren't the most respectable of people, or respectful I should say, and they don't generally tend to treat women well. They don't tend to keep it within their pants and be respectful. They're just kind of dickheady in the way. I mean, they're not saying that he's an intergalactic alien. Their fucking accusations aren't the most outlandish in the world. It's fairly believable. But for some reason they're not. And by the way, the best part of this story is that if you're thinking that, oh, maybe you should give this guy the benefit of the doubt, it turns out that he killed his previous male aide a couple of years ago in a, I think the term was something like a suspiciously sexual scenario. So I'm guessing that was some kind of anal hemorrhaging, some sort of blood loss type thing. But yeah, it was like, this guy is wrapped up in fucking like unseemly, unsavory events. It's just too much to deny. So yeah, that's that story. There's a few things coming out of Saudi Arabia this week. There was a projection done by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, that essentially says that, I'll just read you the article. It says, not even the mighty Middle East can survive cheap oil forever. If oil stays around $50 a barrel, most countries in the region will run out of cash in 5 years or less, warned a dire report from the International Monetary Fund this week. That includes OPEC leader Saudi Arabia, as well as Oman and Bahrain. Low oil prices will wipe out an estimated $360 billion from the region in this year alone, the IMF said. Huge budget surpluses are quickly swinging to massive deficits as oil prices have crashed around the world, around to $45 currently from over $100 last year. Many of these countries are being forced to tap into rainy day funds to weather the storm. Oil exporters will need to adjust their spending and revenue policies to ensure fiscal sustainability, the IMF wrote. The depressed oil prices have come at a time when spending has gone up, as many of these countries are grappling with regional violence and turbulence in the financial markets. Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil producer, needs to sell oil at around $106 to balance its budget, according to IMF estimates. The kingdom barely has enough fiscal buffers to survive 5 years of $50 oil, the IMF said. This is why Saudi Arabia is moving fast to preserve cash. The kingdom not only raised $4 billion by selling bonds earlier this year, but its central bank has yanked up to $70 billion from asset management firms like BlackRock over the past 6 months. I'm fucking delighted about this, to be honest. This is like one of the best news that I read this week. I think it's about time. It was really shocking when I read this, because I was of the mentality that I thought like the Middle East would get like 100 years. I don't know why, but 100 just seemed like a good number to me. I thought now that they've gotten oil, now that it's been refined and they can sell it and they can use all sorts of fossil fuels and stuff, this will do them for 100 years. And after 100 years, by the end of the century, they're beyond fucked again. With global warming going up, the equator would be unlivable. We would have firmly moved on to alternative energies. We're no longer doing them, and the money that they got from us from all the previous transactions would well and truly have dried up, because they're a very transient people. Not Middle Easterners, well, them too, but also specifically the higher elements of the pyramid. Excuse the pun. In the sense that they don't like living there. They always have places in like America, as evidenced by the previous story, or the UK is full of them. They're buying up places in Kent, like mansions and stuff now, because they know that when the shit hits the fan, they're not going to stay there. Their people will rally against them. They will overthrow them. They'll destroy the monarchy. They'll want food. They'll want water. They'll want all that kind of thing, because they don't have they can't afford to move anywhere else. So the rich will come back to, well, not back, but come to Western countries and give us back our money that we gave them in the first place. So they've been they've mismanaged their money. Well, I was going to say poorly, but I guess that would be poor grammar, wouldn't it? If they've mismanaged it poorly, means they've done well. So they've mismanaged it very well. And they haven't built infrastructure. They haven't built motorways. They haven't built any kind of like social security type thing for the poor. They can barely feed their people. They're, like I said, fucked when it comes to global warming. They've not set in any place measures. They are just, they've built the mansions, they've built the palaces, they've built their mosques and stuff, but that won't weather them through the storm. All of that is meaningless, and they will realize that one day and come to the West and give us back our money. So it's like they just obviously can't sell it. But I didn't think this was coming for another many decades. 5 years that's a shock to me. 5 years. Yeah, but good. Fuck 'em. And the last Saudi story we have is Saudi relationship with the UK at risk, warns ambassador. An alarming change in Britain's attitude towards Saudi Arabia could lead to serious repercussions, the Saudi ambassador has warned. Writing in the Daily Telegraph, Prince Mohammed bin Nawaf bin Al Abdulaziz, these fucking bins again. Abdulaziz highlighted the UK's cancellation of a deal to train Saudi prison staff. You remember last week we discussed that. It was the $5.9 million deal that we were going to train their people. Because why wouldn't we pay for the privilege to aid another country? Well, why not? But yeah, we cancelled it essentially. And this ambassador, well, he's angry that we're not spoiling him. Yeah, a little what do they call him? Ferrero Rocher joke there for you. He said that Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn had breached mutual respect by claiming to have been instrumental in the move. Prince Mohammed said that Saudi Arabia would not be lectured to by anyone. Yeah, we understand that by the fact that you're still crucifying people who have internet blogs. Saudi Arabia has been long been accused of human rights abuses and has come under pressure from the UK over its treatment of both expats and Saudi nationals who have fallen foul of the country's Islamic laws. Then there's just more about that prison thing. But yeah, it does seem like we are kind of not severing, but certainly kind of reneging on certain deals and just trying to distance ourselves from them, because it does seem like an untenable situation. The chaos there is getting more and more absolute. We're being asked to do more, contribute more. It just seems like more trouble than it's worth. And what with this whole China deal now, where like they just came over and they are contributing to the nuclear Trident systems down. They're building power plants here and stuff. It seems like we almost don't need them anymore. Their oil is kind of becoming defunct. It's a lot less powerful a currency than it used to be. So I'm glad we're kind of just fucking them off. Maybe, it might actually be the one thing that can cause them to change their very prejudiced ways to basically everyone that isn't them. The only reason we've tolerated them so far was because of the oil, because of the money. They were kind of fairly powerful. I think Saudi Arabia had the number 3? Bless you. That's the first time I've ever heard you sneeze, and it's oddly feminine. It wasn't loud at all.
I was just trying to hold it in because, we're recording. So, Dan, you also great job on just breaking from it and drawing attention to it.
I think they heard it, but it is bad. But yeah, so basically, I think they're like number 3 in terms of GDP. So they are a very powerful people. But now I think it seems like it's going to certainly change within a decade at the very latest. I just couldn't believe 5 years though. So yeah, tenuous relations with them. In other news this week, there was a weird thing I saw at this. There was a photo going around of an article that a person wrote about the late great journalist Hunter S. Thompson. Now, some of you may recognize the name. For those of you who don't, he was essentially one of the counterculture movement's revolutionaries. He wasn't really with the hippie movement per se, but he was certainly instrumental in the 70s and 80s with the drug movement, experimentation. He was known for essentially creating the gonzo movement of journalism that was perfected by others like Nick Broomfield and Louis Theroux. But he was the inventor of that. He actually, I think either he came up with the word or his friend did, but it was applied to him first and foremost. He did stories about absolutely everything, just weird out there story where he fully immersed himself in the cultures of like biker gangs and I think he followed Nixon around. He hounded him. He couldn't stand the man. Did numerous exposés on him. But yeah, he in fact his books got turned into films. Some of you may know of the film Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That was based on him. But essentially, this article it was done back when he was alive, but it's just kind of doing the rounds on the internet now. And it's a description of his daily routine. Now, the man was a fucking degenerate alcoholic and drug fiend. Just listen to this description. Hunter Thompson's daily routine is both predictable and outrageous, if not apocryphal, according to E. Jean Carroll's biography, Hunter, The Strange and Savage Life of Hunter S. Thompson. 3 p.m., rise. 3:05, Chivas Regal with the morning papers, Dunhill cigarette. 3:45, cocaine. 3:50, another glass of Chivas Dunhill. 4:05, first cup of coffee, Dunhill cigarette. 4:15, cocaine. 4:16, orange juice, Dunhill. 4:30, cocaine. 4:55, cocaine. 5:05, cocaine. 5:11, coffee, Dunhill cigarette. 5:30, more ice in the Chivas. 5:45, cocaine. 6 p.m., grass to take the edge off. 7:05, Woody Creek Tavern for lunch, where he has a Heineken, 2 margaritas, 2 cheeseburgers, 2 orders of fries, a plate of tomatoes, coleslaw, a taco salad, a double order of onion rings, carrot cake, ice cream, bean fritter, Dunhill cigarettes, another Heineken, cocaine, and for the ride home, a snow cone, which is a glass of shredded ice over which is poured 3 or 4 jiggers of Chivas. 9 p.m, cocaine. 10 p.m, drops acid. 11 p.m, chartreuse, which I imagine is some sort of champagne, cocaine and grass. 11:30, cocaine. Midnight, Hunter is now ready to write. 12:05 to 6 a.m, chartreuse, cocaine, grass, Chivas, coffee, Heineken, clove cigarettes, grapefruit, Dunhill cigarettes, orange juice, gin. 6 a.m, in the hot tub, champagne, Dove bars, fettuccine, Alfredo. 6 a.m, halcyon. 8:20, sleep. That was his daily fucking routine. That blew my mind when I saw it. I almost don't want to believe it, but I really do want to believe it. It's just, if that is true, how the fuck he survived how long he did. I think he was in his maybe, was it late 50s, early 60s? I remember he committed suicide anyway. He killed himself, I think he shot himself in the head because the football season was over. So, he was a very mercurial man. I'd recommend giving him an old check on the Google. By the way, Michael, happy Women's Day off, by the way. No? You're not familiar with this what today is?
Happy Women's Day off to you, too.
40 years ago today, Icelandic women took the day off from housework, childcare, or paid jobs to bring attention to the importance of their work. October 24th, 1975, 90% of women took to the streets in their fight for women's rights, thereby paralyzing the country. They demanded rights and wages comparable to those enjoyed by men. Speeches were given in, here's another one with the fucking language, Leik-Jart-Org Square, downtown Reykjavik, by nationally known women. The Women's Day off coincided with the 30th anniversary of the United Nations. So basically, women got a bit uppity. They decided to take the day off to prove how needed they were in society. It kind of backfired on them, though, because it just proved how disposable they actually were. More or less, society didn't fall. Do you want to know where the men were? Yeah, they were working. They were just, doing jobs and stuff like men do. Because if they took the day off, society would actually fucking crumble. That's how vital they are. Who's going to pick up the fucking rubbish? Who's going to drive the trains? Who's going to manage all the fucking sewage systems? Who's going to do all the boring fucking shit that men do? No one. So I think it kind of backfired on them that it showed just how disposable women are. They can take the day off from house cleaning and childcare and stuff and just go down and protest. I mean, 90% of women fucked off, and the country wasn't crippled. It more or less ran for the day. That tells you everything you need to know about the story. So, happy that day today. We have a story coming out from Hong Kong, not to be outdone in the inhumane barbaric stakes from Saudi Arabia. A Chinese tourist has died in Hong Kong a day after being beaten up during a so-called forced shopping tour. Operators of such discounted tours try to recoup costs by pressuring tourists to buy goods at selected stores. Police said the victim, 54, intervened when a fellow tourist got into a fight with a tour guide after refusing to buy anything at a jewellery shop. At least 4 people have been arrested in the Hong Kong Tourist Board. At least 4 people have been arrested, and the Hong Kong Tourist Board expressed regret over the incident. Oh yeah, I'm sure they did. Probably bowed and put their hands together as they always do and hope that just kind of gets rid of the fucking fracas. But they said that the HKTB has a zero tolerance for any act that impacts the hospitable image of Hong Kong, particularly acts of violence, it said in a statement. The victim, a male building contractor from northeast China, was found lying unconscious outside a shop in Kowloon on Monday morning. He tried to mediate a fight between two women believed to be the tour leader and one of the tourists before he and the female tourist were attacked in a group by a group of men who dragged them out into the street and beat them, police said. Yeah, it's one of those things that it really does speak a lot about a country or a certain city. They try so hard to pretend like this isn't the way it is, and yet every time they can't get lower in your estimation. All they care about is money making. It's such a facade, this whole hospitable image of theirs, and no one's falling for it. You know, every time a video comes out about a fucking, like, you know, little kid playing amongst the stalls of like some market, and then, you know, he pops out and someone like runs him over and then they just drive off. That isn't even the worst bit. People just walk past, and they don't even walk past and ignore him because they didn't see him. They look at him, they stare for a bit, and then they just continue walking. They're the most soulless, inhumane people, and shit like this just always happens. You know, a forced shopping tour. What kind of a fucking absurd culture would come up with this? They do free tours, and then they specifically stop at certain shops and then heavily encourage the participants of the tour to buy from the stores. They're probably getting a commission or something from the stores. It's absurd. Yeah. So that's Hong Kong for you. We move over to Syria. Well, not really. We move over to the UK, but about Syria. Bishops this week have urged David Cameron to do more. 84 Church of England bishops have revealed that they wrote to David Cameron last month urging him to accept at least 50,000 refugees from Syria. The UK's decision to accept 20,000 by 2020, Jesus, 20s, was not adequate, and most people wanted to offer more help, they said. By the way, not even remotely true. The Bishop of Dunham, the Right Reverend R.T. Rev, the Right Reverend Paul Butler, said it was disheartening that they had not had a substantive reply. Defence Secretary Michael Fallon said nobody is doing more than the UK to help refugees in their camps, which is true. The government has also offered to accept 20,000 refugees from camps bordering Syria, and it has also provided $1 billion in aid to Syria, with an extra $100 million given to charities to help thousands displaced by the conflict. There has been a debate in recent months about how countries should respond to the migrant crisis. This weekend, Hungary closed its border with Croatia, and Slovenia put its army on standby to deal with migrants entering the country. I mean, I fear that I'm overusing this phrase, but the shit is well and truly hitting the fan in all aspects of the world. It's like these stories, they don't seem like they're slowing down. It feels like we haven't even hit the worst of it yet. I mean, this expectation by the reverends that they can just message with their letter to David Cameron and expect him to take in more. They must realise that they are seen as fundamentally disingenuous, because begging never helps. It doesn't ever stop. The number won't be 50,000 even if you give in to 50,000. It'll be 100,000 by the end of the year. It will be 500,000 by next year. It will just constantly keep going up and up and up, because you can never do enough for these people. They always have the hands out. You can choose to take that as the Syrians, the Middle Easterners, or just the reverends, who literally always do have the hand out with their fucking alms in their fucking services. I mean, they're somewhat reminiscent of the homeless from South Park, where you give them change, and as soon as you fucking give them change, they want more change. They just forget. They're just obscenely ungrateful, to the point where you may as well just wash your hands of it and just be done with them. If they're not going to, it's like people complain of Red Nose Day or Comic Relief every year, and how no one feels like anything ever changes. You give money, and what happens? Lenny Henry comes on and thanks you, but what fucking changes? He'll be back next year. Richard Curtis will be back next year. They'll all be back next year. They're always fucking back next year. Africa doesn't change. That's why they go so far out of their way to try and make little videos and VTs and stuff of, well, I guess the same thing, videos, VTs, videotapes. They make videos, essentially. They make little parslets of information showing the changes in Africa, and they show like, oh, this girl was homeless now and she gets an education. But that doesn't change. It's a drop in the ocean. It's not doing enough to change anything. It feels minute. There is no systematic change. There is no governmental overthrow. There is no relief from corruption. The weather is hot as shit and always will be. They cannot get crops grown. They're just completely invested in this idea of civil war and killing each other for the most minor of fucking differences, like the difference between the Hutus and the Tutsis, which no one fucking knows the difference. But so it's like it never feels like it changes. And so, David Cameron, if you are listening, don't fucking give in to the reverends, because it won't help. 20,000. The fact that you've offered 20,000 to come here, apropos of nothing, by the way, we don't owe them anything. But that is beyond the call of duty. I think that is, that is more than, we needed to do. And the billion that we've given them, it's just how anyone can say that we haven't helped is just beyond ungrateful to me. So yeah. By the way, I love the fucking hypocrisy of reverends saying that, Cameron needs to do more. What are you fucking doing more? About not sexually abusing kids. What about you doing more? Like, if I remember correctly, Christians were all fucking, all invested in the Third Reich, the Catholic Church especially. I mean, they all had a hand in it. They were all, what was that? What was that thing? Was it Reverend Martin Niemöller, I think was his name. He's the guy who said, first they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not one of them. Then I came for then they came for the, was it Soviets? No. First came trade unionists. Then the next one was, the fucking phrase, you've heard it. And then he essentially ends it, and then there was, then they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me. Well, that was essentially the, Christianity's foreign policy on anyone that wasn't them. As long as Hitler had turned his ire away from them, they sacrificed shitloads. They told him left, right and centre where they were hiding. They were essentially a fucking organisational equivalent to the fucking farmer at the start of Inglourious Bastards. They pointed out under the floorboards. They fucking pointed out all the Jews where they were hiding. They gave them up left, right and centre. It was fucking atrocious. Suddenly, religion wasn't quite willing to do its part and accept more, hide more. No, they were quite willing to just work hand in hand with Hitler. So, people in glass houses, reverends. So, with that, we move to, I guess, sort of sticking with the migrant crisis, but more in a continental European manner. The EU has backed Turkey's action plan this week. EU states have backed an action plan with Turkey, which is hoped will ease the flow of migrants to Europe. Nearly 600,000 migrants have reached the EU by sea this far, so far this year, many of them travelling from Turkey. The leaders agreed to speed up visa liberalisation talks for Turks if Turkey stems the influx, and to re-energise talks on it joining the EU. However, the Turkish foreign minister said that the deal was a draft and had not been agreed upon. Oh, here we go with another name. Feridun Sinirlioglu called the financial measures proposed by the EU unacceptable, according to an AFP news agency. Meanwhile, a migrant thought to be an Afghan was shot dead by a Bulgarian border guard after entering the country from Turkey late on Thursday. See, you have to read between the lines with these kinds of stories. Essentially what's going on here is that for years, Turkey has tried to be part of the EU. Since the conception of the EU, its name has always been on the maybe list. But the reason why it's very controversial as to why Turkey should join is because there is contention as to whether or not it's part of Europe or if it's Middle Eastern. I mean, its people are Middle Eastern. They're predominantly Muslim. And climate-wise, it's got more in common with, obviously, Middle Eastern countries. It's seen as like one of those destinations for tourists to go to. They've historically had a fairly shitty human rights record. They are firmly, I would say, Middle Eastern as opposed to European. There's not much European about them, to be honest. So it sets a precedent. If you allow them in, you're essentially allowing any other Middle Eastern country to lay a claim and try to join the EU, which of course will be very good to them because we have shitloads of money. But see, up until now, Turkey has had very little leverage. But now, what with their fucking position as the gatekeeper to the rest of the EU and allowing, almost kind of blackmailing us without saying it, they're holding this possibility of allowing all the millions upon millions of migrants to come through. They're allowing them, they have the possibility of allowing them in. So they're really leveraging this claim to try and join the EU. And essentially the EU has given in now. Turkey has successfully blackmailed its way into the EU. And I think it's kind of a shame that's how they're getting in. You know, it's like every other country has to join legitimately. Not so much now. It just shows you that laws are just being fucked out the window left, right and centre. You know, we talked about the whole confiscating of people's property. Now they can just be blackmailed. So it just shows that they have no shame. There's no kind of dignity to the EU anymore. And, you know, personally speaking, I can't wait for 2017 and the referendum as to whether or not we're going to be part of it. You know, I'm pretty sure we're going to say we don't want to be part of it. You know, we've always been a fairly bulldog nation. You know, I know we, but we've always kind of like, we kept the pound. You know, we've always kind of pulled more than our own weight, to be honest, when it came to international affairs of like diplomacy and things like that. Our voice carries weight, and we really are the only person that, the only nation that can stand up to Merkel and the power of Germany. Who technically does have, I think, the largest GDP in Europe. Either way, Germany's a fairly considerable foe. So no one else can do it if not us. So I think you know, Englanders have realised this and probably most likely will leave the EU. What do you think, Michael? Do you think you know, that they actually will leave, or you know, what's your gut feeling? Do you think we'll stay?
I would say no, or I thought no for quite a while. But yeah, given the whole global situation we found ourselves in with refugees and the like, yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say that the British people are starting to sort of catch on to this. But there is I personally think anyway that Cameron doesn't want us to leave, and I feel like him and the rest of his party are will try and sort of go back on their word almost, you know, with the whole referendum. Like, they probably will do the referendum, but I feel like it'll be a case of you know, trying to reach a deal with the EU, perhaps to give us more flexibility or something to that, so he can maybe actually cancel the referendum and just go, oh, don't worry about it because we got this, or we got that, and we got this.
No, I think it's going to happen. I think it's definitely. There's no way it can't happen. He's promised it now. It's like it would take a miracle for it not to happen. Too many people are expecting it, and to the point where if he didn't give it to us, it would almost radicalize the people who were in the middle. It would almost be a justification for them to say, now I'm fucking pissed. Now that you're not giving me a voice in it, I definitely will vote for you know, us to leave the EU, or we'll just demand it, we'll protest, we'll do whatever the fuck we need to. But it will be the nail in the coffin. The only choice that the EU does have to survive this link with the UK is if we do vote no and we decide to stay with them. So it's going to come down to campaigning. I don't think it's going to come down to whether or not it'll happen. I'm fairly sure that it will. But yeah, so on a lighter note, there is a video doing the rounds this week, and it's essentially a Scientology promotional video. So they released, internally speaking, of course, they released this video amongst their, what would you call them, acolytes, and I think it's like an hour long. Don't worry, we're not going to do the whole thing. Some generous motherfucker online edited down the choice elements to a video, and it has to be seen to be believed. It is the most nonsensical gobbledygook that you've ever heard in your life. There is this this kind of obsession with academia and being like smart and it's probably why they call themselves Scientologists in the first place, for the fact that they want to be associated with science. It's this, I mean, if you remember back, well, I don't know if you remember or not, but if you've heard, Scientology was actually once touted as completely compatible with other organized religions. That's how they kind of were not immediately snuffed out, like by people who were just suspicious, or Catholics or Christians or whatever the case may be. They were an alternative lifestyle type thing. It was almost like doing yoga. It was kind of like you can do Scientology and still be a Catholic, which is how they wormed their way into people's hearts. And then it was only once they got so big that they didn't want to pay tax anymore that they threw back the cape and declared themselves a religion, and therefore became tax exempt. Which, by the way, on a side note, Germany didn't fall for, and realizes that they're just a cult and a scam and charlatans and all that kind of thing, didn't give them tax exempt status. And this week it was just announced that the Dutch have completely changed their mind about the tax exempt status. So I think one by one, slowly its reputation is kind of speaking for it, and it's becoming considerably less and less legitimate, if it ever was, to be honest. I think there's only so much people's love of John Travolta and Saturday Night Fever will allow them to give the whole cult as a whole the benefit of the doubt. So this video was doing the rounds, and you have to hear these people's opinions on Scientology. They're Scientologists themselves, but just listen to the extraordinary jargon they use.
The Golden Age of Knowledge is uniting all of us. I really feel like it is making all of us this juggernaut, this group, this theta juggernaut, where we're all on the same page.
We have never had this much wealth of information that we can totally duplicate and secure our own eternity.
My tone.
We've never had this amount of information that we can duplicate and secure our own eternity. I think she's talking about the internet, but I'm not quite sure. But if she's looking to the internet for support for Scientology, oh, Nelly, that is a bad option. Do not go online if you want to remain a Scientologist.
Approach to life has just gone through the roof. It has given me the keys to unlock the treasures of life.
Every day I studied, it was like drinking from the cup of knowledge, and I just became more powerful as a spiritual being.
I just have amazing knowledge and a viewpoint that is 360 degrees.
Listen to how many times any of them uses the term knowledge, wisdom, or anything just like intellectual, like fountain and just all that kind of stuff. Just they're obsessed with getting across this point that they're smart, which, as you've probably guessed, smart people don't need to do.
And it just stretches from here to eternity.
I have a firm foundation that I don't waver from because I know exactly what I know.
I don't know what it would be like to not know this stuff now.
Life just isn't a mystery.
I don't know what it'd be like to not know this stuff right now. Yeah, that's kind of how knowledge works. You can't not know something. If I say, don't think of a pink elephant, what are you going to think about? Of course, when you know a concept, you know a concept.
Anymore.
The basics give you everything you want in life and you've been looking for basically all your track.
Whenever you go into
By the way, I'll try and explain some terminology as we go through. I think track is like, okay, you've heard the whole billion year contract thing. Like they sign a thing and you can't leave. For every lifespan you go through, you're constantly always going to be a Scientologist. Which kind of makes you think, like, how relieving would it be if you went through like 1 billion years and you finally got the notification that you can actually leave if you want to? Like, what would you do on that day if you were no longer a Scientologist and you've wanted to leave through all of your different life cycles? But yeah, I think the track is the combined the combined combination of all of the different life cycles together. So for all of your track, for all of his track, this guy knows these truths.
study, you come out like in a session with, you're blown out because you've got hundreds of new viewpoints.
It just really changes your perspective on your capabilities and your just abilities in the games you're playing and the games you should be playing.
How this whole subject fits together, how you as a Thetan fit together, how it all interacts, how it works, and when you've got that, It's kind of like having the key to the Rubik's Cube. You can just kind of go click, click, click.
There is no key to a Rubik's Cube.
The entire universe. You know what I mean? But you don't realize that you are, because you're just doing the next logical step as LRH did.
He kept giving me these
LRH, do I really need to explain? L. Rod Hubbard. Come on.
wisdom, these secrets of the universe, and even one of those would change the world. And then he kept giving me more and more and more and more.
I'm just trying
Yeah,
out
any one of LRH's secrets would change the world. It's a pity none of them stood up to scientific scrutiny and actually, did change the world for the better. Swings and roundabouts, I guess. I mean, I guess he just took all his orbs of knowledge to his death. All the things he could have changed the world for the better. He probably knew about particle physics, and he could probably, desalinate seawater and have water for everyone. No, he probably just, took it to his grave, because why not?
It says in the book kind of gently, my whole universe is like shifting around.
All of a sudden, it was like a veil just lifted. And like all of a sudden I could see and I was here.
All of a sudden.
And I was like, whoa. Like it literally took me like 2 weeks to get used to it.
As you go through the lineup in
2 weeks, how
chronological order,
specific.
get to the PDC, in one tape it all came together. So I know how ARC is the tone scale, create, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you need any specifics, he knows he knows how DR, whatever the fuck, leads to the tone scale. All of it, all of that kind of stuff. It's just anything in the da-da-das. He knows all of it. I mean, yeah, you don't need any specifics, of course, because, that would require knowledge and you'd have to be held up to peer-to-peer evaluation with, actual intellectuals. But suffice to say, it's like the fucking episode of Seinfeld with his girlfriend. She's trying to tell a story, and she always ends up going, yada yada yada, and she skips the best elements of the story. And then he goes, well, no, what's the yada yada yada? Like, tell me the yada yada yada. It's like this. You're talking about intergalactic knowledge, you're talking about universal concepts, you're talking about immortality, you're talking about thetans and volcanoes and Xenu, and you're talking about the meaning of life. But no, just go why on earth would you want to specify?
expand as a being right on the spot.
You blow down and blow down and blow down.
total blowdown, persistent FM.
My needle was floating on course.
Unbelievable.
He was like,
Yeah, I would agree, unbelievable.
Now I know, and these are the basics.
When I was studying the Congresses, I became a Scientologist because they're so simple and the tech is so pure.
I would agree, Scientologists are very simple.
So basic, but they are so potent, and they literally just set you on fire as a spiritual being.
I
And
feel
unfortunately,
like I'm
not
there,
literally.
understanding every little thing on the edge of my seat of what Ron is saying and discovering and relaying and eating it up, drinking it up.
The Success Congress, literally within the first lecture, he gives you what the third dynamic engram is. And you're just like...
Well, I mean, who wouldn't refuse the third dynamic engram? I mean, I think that's on every boy's wish list for Christmas.
The Congresses are like breakthrough, 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 breakthrough.
Zoom, 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 boom, big data, zoom, 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 boom, big data. And after a moment, it's...
And all of a sudden, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god, I totally know what he was doing.
all the answers to matter, energy, space, and time, what is a being, what is a case, anything you want to know is on the ACC.
The ACCs are like, let's roll our sleeves up and getting down to the nitty-gritty of what actually makes man tick.
Ellery's just talking about memorizing the axioms. So I start memorizing the axioms. You start going, oh, is that what I've been doing? Well, that's not too good. I better stop doing that. Oh, is that what? So now
Yeah,
it's kind of...
again, don't actually tell anyone any kind of things that may make them actually interested in your cause, your ideology. Don't say, oh, by the way, here's a way you can better your life by memorizing the axioms, which means like actually say, no, just say, oh, was that what I was doing? I can't believe I was being so stupid. And if I could talk to myself retrospectively, I would tell him to really stop doing that thing. Of course I can't actually tell you what the thing was because people need to make money and stuff. So why on earth would I give you any information when we can get you down to the Scientologist Center and bilk you for every penny that you're worth?
I'd left the Nest universe. Oh, is that what I've been doing? Well, that's not not too good. I better stop doing that. Oh, is that what? So now it's kind of funny to myself. As I go through life, I just go 14, 22, 38, 55.
I will say something direct.
Say some more numbers. Don't specify what they mean. Why on earth would I do that? I'm just going to be patronizing. I'm going to be condescending to everyone I meet. I'm walking down the street, and I point at him, and I go 11, I go 22, and I'm just having a whale of a time with my in-jokes.
Out of what I've studied. You know, whether it's creating space, granting beingness, something like that. It's not even, oh, I've got to remember where that came from. It just comes out.
My God. You know, then when he audits you, you know, he does the group processing. I mean, he's auditing me, you know, and I am just blowing out.
I would get so exterior just listening to the group processing. I was just like, wow, now what do I do?
I'd left the nest universe for a second here. Like,
whoa, wow. Wow, okay.
Whoa, say some more onomatopoeic words. Say pow, say zoom, say whoosh, because we're like children reading a comic book. And if you say that, it's like speech bubbles when Superman punches a person. Biff, baff, boff. We can just be won over. Oh, I'm going to give my life over to Scientologists now that they've used those fucking words.
With the golden age of knowledge and really understanding the basics of our religion, it's given me the fuel that I need to really understand what I'm doing as a PC.
You get the wings from the
Not a Mac.
You get it, you go, wow, that's great, you know, really got that. Then you have the auditing, and then you get this massive benefit. It's like, wow, where'd that come from? Whatever I listened to that day would have some exact connection to what was going on in the session. And as a result of that, I would have some huge cognition.
The win doesn't just become a foot wide, suddenly it feels a mile wide. Because you understand the data of what just happened.
The cognitions are much deeper, are bigger, faster, because I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm seeing.
I see my wins multiplied by 2 by 3, and then the speed of sessions is getting faster.
Bam, I went through grade 3, grade 4, shortly after I finished net.
And actually,
Bam! I just went through grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6. I mean, it's almost like they were just built to, be kind of knocked down in succession, one after the other. It's almost like you could have lumped loads of them into just one level. But of course, why on earth would I want to do that when I was paying 10 grand per level? I mean, you should have seen this. I mean, I thought that I got to grade 9, which was the max when I joined, but lucky for me, they just announced 53 new levels for me to pass. So actually, the whole adventure is just starting again. I can go through them one by one by one by one by one by one, and hopefully pretty soon I'll end up bankrupt.
Much easier because I knew what I was doing, and I just got to the bottom of it, and I went clear.
I tested clear. I went up straight to 85 at a very, very, very fast speed.
Bing, 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 bing.
46 and 7 went just like this.
Everything that you've done comes together.
I was able to go very fast up the bridge, and here I am in the RTX.
What we dreamed of before is happening now because of the golden age of knowledge.
Just making sure that my bridge is there. It's just like every solid pillar of my bridge.
this information is unbelievable.
Like a full hat for a Thetan.
Heck, I can even understand me.
Because it becomes you.
One cognition after another.
Lots and lots of wins.
Like a billion of wins.
I guess you could say my biggest win is to continually have wins. Because it never
I
stops.
only imagine what's coming next, but it's going to be huge.
And you're going to want to get all that material.
We all have to be ready.
I am so ready.
I know I'm ready.
Because we have the basic foundation for our eternity.
And you just sit there with that and go, I am one of the most lucky, fortunate beings in the entire universe.
Yeah, that's what the people of Heaven's Gate said.
To be sitting here being given what really is a golden age of knowledge.
You have never seen a more rancid bunch of fucking troglodytes in your entire life. I mean, these people look like something from The Hills Have Eyes. Of course they're going to be fucking duped into this kind of shit. They have to hope that they have another life, because this one has dealt them a fucking raw hand of just monstrous, unfortunate aspects to their both personality and looks. They just seem like the dregs that humanity has to offer. And of course, this is the type of shit that cults prey on. I mean, you know, they're not going to actually target successful people. Why would they? There are always people that are just kind of, you know, feeling insecure about life. I mean, look at the supposed people within their fucking community. In the closet, John Travolta, tiny Napoleon syndrome himself, Tom Cruise. I mean, these people were born to be included in a fucking cult. Where else would they be? So anyway, that is that. That's it for this week. Business as usual. If you want to email the show, any submissions, you can email us at thestrikeshow@hotmail.com. Email us with pictures, with videos, with stories, topics, whatever the fuck you want to email us. Or just tell me to go fuck myself. You know, as is your right. Welcome to the internet. So you can do that. You can contribute to the show. You can find a link in the description below. Give a penny, give $1 billion if you want. It's completely up to you. And also finally, thank you to Whack Arts here in Belsize Park for hosting us yet again. And that is it from me, your host, Sean Hartnett. And Michael, would you like to say anything?
I'm good.
No? Okay.
I'm pretty. I'll just sort of leave all the talking to you, really, and I think you got this goodbye thing wrapped up in quite a nice, neat little bow. Good job,
cool.
Sean. Good job, Sean. Good job.
Okay, we shall see you back here next week. Take care. Bye.